G'day, Shane Dowling here from the website and YouTube channel, Kangaroo Court of Australia, and I'm with Troy Stolz, the Pokies whistleblower. You've probably read about him or seen him on TV in relation to blowing the whistle on corruption in the pokie industry. Now, we're going to discuss the Australian Securities Investment Commission. Last week, the Australian Senate handed down a report recommending they be split, well, not recommending, advising that the ASIC be split into two because it's been failing for a long time. And it's probably not a good sign for the National Anti-Corruption Commission if the federal body like ASIC has been failing for a long time. The National Anti-Corruption Commission, hopefully that's not going to go the same way, but it looks like it will, given they're already under investigation themselves for corruption. So, Troy, what's your understanding of the government's recommendations in relation to ASIC?
Shane, thanks for having me on. Look, it's what we've heard from previous reports and well reported by Adele Ferguson, Jeff Morris, the CBA banking whistleblower. Those issues have been systemic within ASIC for decades now, and governments of the day just seem to allow it to keep continuing on. You know, is that an accident, or is that deliberate? But looking at some of the comments that have come out of the committee inquiry, deep flaws in ASIC's approach to investigation and enforcement. They fail to respond to early warnings. I'm not sure what sort of show they're running in there. It looks like the culture being toxic from the top down. They're probably more concerned about what's for lunch than actually doing their job. That's I think they've been allowed to go on for too long. I think splitting them into two, definitely a good idea. Maybe closing the joint down, putting a fire hose through it and cleaning it up and starting again might be the only real alternate.
Well, one of the key elements is saying it's weak is because it doesn't institute criminal proceedings. It's backed away from that in a big way, and it's only basically instituting civil proceedings. I'll give you one example. It's got it on their own website, the ASIC website, on the 19th of May 2023. Court penalises AMP 24 million for charging deceased customers. They were charging deceased customers for years, something like 2,000 of them. But from my memory, that was raised and exposed during the Banking Royal Commission, which ran from December 2017 till February 2019. So that's something like 4 or 5 years after that, they're getting a civil penalty against the AMP. Number one, they've dragged their feet forever to get that civil penalty, 4 or 5 years. Number two, there's no criminal penalty. You know, someone should be jailed. That was straight out fraud to boost the bonuses and wages of the corrupt AMP staff. What do you think about that?
Well, it's just extraordinary. These agencies, and I've had experience with both ASIC and my circumstances when I blew the whistle on the money laundering in the clubs and pubs in New South Wales. Absolute disgrace dealing with ASIC. And then my experience at the same time dealing with AUSTRAC, another government body. They just can't make decisions. It's like they've got no one, the lights are on and no one's at home at all. I mean, Jeff Morris, I think from memory, 16 years he's been on this journey, with the banking industry. And, they got a bit of a slap with the Royal Commission, but, business is back to normal. And, any civil penalties that you've touched on are only a speeding fine or a slap with a wet lettuce. I mean, there needs to be some criminal charges, forthcoming. Otherwise, it's not a deterrent to any organisation. It's just the cost of doing business.
Well, I got this other example. I had a quick look around on the AUSTRAC website on the 11th of July 2023. They find, or the court found, Crown Melbourne and Crown Perth, the casinos, liable, and fined them $450 million to be paid over 2 years. That was because they were allowing organised crime to wash their money through the casinos. And we don't know the true amount that they made from it. They probably made $1 billion or $2 billion from it. And that's what they negotiated with the AUSTRAC. Now, that's $450 million fine they've agreed to pay. You know, if you go into a bank and steal $2,000, you're going to jail. This is a
Yeah,
450.
absolutely. These fines, not being, not putting a director in jail. There's no, under the Corporations Act, directors are meant to be liable of these organisations. And once again, they're giving them a belly rub. There's no, no enforcement action that is putting the fear of God into these individuals or boards running these organisations, because they know at the end of the day the government's going to allow them to get away with it. But like you said, if someone misappropriates funds at a lower level, or they don't declare a accidental amount of money going in their account of a few grand and don't report it back, they want to throw the kitchen sink at them. So I think we've allowed, through lack of enforcement, lack of regulators having teeth, we've allowed it to become a joke, and it's an international joke. We've got the Financial Action Task Force over in Paris, which is the overarching body of AML regulations, and we're bordering on being contempt in the fact that we haven't complied with previous recommendations that we're meant to. We're dragging the chain on everything, and all it is, you can virtually pin it back to the government, just dragging the chain. So it's like they're not interested in doing it. They're happy how things are at the moment, how they're just trekking along.
You said you had dealings with AUSTRAC. What happened there?
Look, the funny thing was, when I blew the whistle on the money laundering, ASIC, from a whistleblowing perspective, ASIC was the appropriate body back in 2020 when I went to ASIC. There was more focus on my actions of blowing the whistle than the evidence that I had compiled and shared with the likes of ASIC and even AUSTRAC, and no one wanted to know about it. They were more interested in the industry, and once again, the focus is always on who's a whistleblower. Why have they done this? Why have they said that? We've got to take them out rather than investigate the allegations properly. Look at the evidence. And the governments are scared to do that for whatever reason, political donations, deals that have been done in dark hallways of rooms with the two major parties. That's the issue. But you would think raising a money laundering issue, AUSTRAC being the appropriate regulator for that jurisdiction, they don't actually have legislation in place for anyone that witnesses financial crime or money laundering incidents to report through their framework. They can only take reporting from registered entities that have designated services like Pokies. So Joe Blow on the street sees something, he can't report that, seeing rubber bands on the floor and people playing two machines at once in a group of criminal syndicate around a dozen roulette tables. Joe Blow can't report that to AUSTRAC. AUSTRAC, they don't have the structure in place. You've got to go to ASIC. And this is a problem with the NACC and not having a whistleblower protection authority. You've got an organisation inept like ASIC. This is just another burden on their plate. They're just going to drop it big time, and that was the issue with my the evidence that I provided to AUSTRAC.
Well, that's the bottom line. The ASIC don't want to know about it. Corruption at the high end, they just want to know about low-level corruption, unless they're forced to deal with it in effect. Like if those two examples I just spoke about, AMP with ASIC, they were forced to deal with that because they was exposed at the Royal Commission, Banking Royal Commission. And AUSTRAC, well, the Crown issue was exposed by Channel 9, 60 Minutes. And the government didn't want to deal with it either, but it obviously forced AUSTRAC to deal with it. So it's only when they're pressured by the media that they actually do anything. But, you were also saying, I think someone from AUSTRAC went to the National Anti-Corruption Commission as one of the commissioners or assistant commissioners.
Yeah, that's correct. So when you've got a situation of toxic culture from the top down in these organisations, and you can put ASIC and AUSTRAC in the same banana bag with the NACC, and have a look at the dynamics of who the leadership group is. So we had Brereton heading up the NACC, appointed by who? Mark Dreyfus, the Attorney General. What's Brereton's background? Ex-Army. I think he's still in the Army Reserves. Whistleblowing of David McBride, doing act on David McBride's whistleblowing. They completely swept it under the rug and covered it up. So I can't see how you're going to expect cultural change within an organisation, or any change, when you're handpicking, the government of the day's handpicking the future leaders for these organisations, when they've come out of one absolute bonfire and they're going to another organisation. It's just not going to change. So with AUSTRAC, Nicole Rose did absolutely nothing while she was at AUSTRAC. I worked in the in the club industry, well recorded, for 8 years. Never saw boo from AUSTRAC within the club or pub sector. There's been, I think, the most significant fine or remediation or enforcement action was the Southern Cross Club in Canberra in 2016. They got a whack for not having an adequate AML program, and then they had to undertake getting an external order done by a consultancy firm to help them get back on track. That probably cost them about 150 grand, but these clubs are turning over millions and millions of dollars. So that was hardly a smack, hardly a significant fine. And then we've got the situation recently, the Katoomba RSL was issued with a $14,000 fine by AUSTRAC, obligations annually to AUSTRAC. 14 grand versus an entity that's turning over millions. It's just like going through the drive-through at McDonald's. It just doesn't fit the crime, the punishment, as you touched on. And until we start, making these directors of the boards accountable under the Corporations Act, and actually regulating these industries properly, nothing's going to change. We've seen Crown and Star get flogged by the regulators, but the New South Wales Crime Commission, Project Islington, in October 22 did a pretty comprehensive job on identifying there was money laundering in pokie venues in New South Wales outside casinos. So what's Chris Minns do with that report? He puts it in the bin, straight into the bin, and talks some gobbledygook about he's going to look at it and they'll report back in November this year. Meanwhile, the money launderers are having a field day. So when the governments are impeding in enforcement and regulation, that's where we've got the issue. And I got absolutely smashed blowing the whistle, and it's cost me significantly financially and health. My health's gone as well. Poor regulators, trying to do their job, and then they've got to go to deputy secretaries of departments, and they've told to shut their eyes, or to lose the brief, or whatever the code is. I'm not sure. That's the issue. We need some politicians and some senior public servants come under the crossfire. That's what we need. Send a statement. What you're doing is wrong, and we're not going to tolerate it anymore. But the government doesn't seem to have the appetite for that, and that's a clear example in the NACC, where robo-debt, the damage and destruction that caused under the Morrison government. So what happens? This NACC gives everyone involved in that a free kick and drop the charges. It's just unbelievable. You think we're operating a government and enforcement regulation in a third world country. It's disgraceful.
The thing is, I'm just thinking about it then, the robo-debt Royal Commission might end up taking out Paul Brereton, because he's in a lot of trouble. because it's not just robo-debt. He got exposed about a month ago in a government report, and a lot of people already knew that he was protecting the senior soldiers, the senior officers in the Australian Defence Force from war crimes. But he got exposed in a government report about a month ago, 2 months ago, which is a lot worse than obviously people, spreading rumours about it, spreading rumours or discussing it in the media. Well, that's one thing. But when the government report is handing down the report and saying, hey, you failed to hold senior officers to account, then he's in a lot of trouble. Then add on robo-debt, where he's been busted, trying to sweep that under the carpet. He claims he had nothing to do with it because he said there's a conflict of interest. He won't say what it was, but I've discovered all the photos of him and Catherine Campbell, who was one of the lead perpetrators of the robo-debt scandal. She was a public servant who basically got the sack. Well, she didn't get the sack. She resigned before she got the sack. He knows her well, and I've got photographs of them in the Australian Defence Force together. So I think the Robo-Debt Royal Commission, while it's a failure, it's a failed to hold anyone to account, it could end up taking down the NACC Commissioner, Paul Brereton, because he's under investigation. Well, he potentially isn't under investigation, but the NACC is. The inspector, Gail Furness, is investigating the NACC for corruption, alleged corruption over the Robo-Debt Royal Commission cover-up. So we'll see what happens there, because it's going to be pretty hard for him to maintain his position because he's regarded as a joke already, and he's only 12 months old. Who was that lady? Rose, you said, has gone to
Nicole Rose from AUSTRAC. She's a deputy commissioner with the NACC. So this Albanese government seems to have a focus on rewarding those that are performing badly or performing ordinary in other organisation and give them these plum jobs. I mean, Stephen Smith, the former defence minister, was up to his armpits in what was going on in Afghanistan. So what do you do with him? Keep him quiet, give him a plum posting over in the UK as the ambassador, and problem solved. So that's unfortunately this Albanese government, who promised the world in opposition. We're going to be a fresher breath air with transparency, integrity, and really laid the boot into the LNP coalition. And as we see things pan out, they've been no different. I mean, they're joined at the hip at the moment. And some examples of that, it's about the main two parties, the duopoly, looking after each other. How do you reward people from political persuasions? And I'm not saying that these people don't have the skill set for the jobs, but pretty convenient that Matt Keane retires from politics one day and the next minute he's been appointed, by the Albanese government to head up their new position for him. Yeah. So, I mean, and also have a look at AUKUS. Most people aren't aware who the co-chairs of AUKUS are, whether you like them or not, whether you think they did a good job or not. It doesn't pass the pub test when you give Arthur Sinodinos and Joel Fitzgibbon joint co-chair of AUKUS with a beautiful salary, I'm sure, to go with that. I mean, people have just had a gutful of this, and I'm really hopeful that we see, some more independents coming out of the woodwork and running at the next federal election, and also the Greens getting a few more in, because the duopoly of they've joined forces, they've lost their moral compasses, Liberal and Labor, and I think hopefully people step up come election time and rectify that.
But how about we finish off with ASIC, get back to that, because it doesn't get a lot of publicity a lot of the time, but the people who are getting ripped off their superannuation, when they get ripped off by financial planners, and they go to ASIC hoping something can be done to rectify it, and they're left empty-handed. I think the bottom line is the government's probably not going to do anything in the near future, and quite possibly not much in the long term either in relation to ASIC. They've got a Senate inquiry report recommending they be split up, but I don't think Albanese's got the stomach for it. What do you think?
No, not at all. And led by Mark Dreyfus, who, promised Once again, transparency, integrity, whistleblower protection authority. Yeah, he was right about taking a position on whistleblowers. Jailing them was what he really meant he was going to do, not bring in a whistleblower protection authority. And I think the importance of an agency like that, blowing the whistle. I felt like when I was dealing with ASIC, they didn't, want to know what was going on or didn't understand what was going on when I blew the whistle. And the Whistleblower Protection Authority, stalling that organisation, that can be appropriately funded and resourced with the right people in there that understand the complexities of the whistleblower legislation. So you've got specialist people in there dealing with specific matters, where at the moment ASIC's, juggling a million balls and they don't seem to have a grasp of any of them that they're juggling. So doomed to fail. Biggest problem I have now is we're potentially 12 months out from election. They go automatically in a caretaker mode and they want to try and get re-elected. And who knows what's going to happen. I'll be surprised to see an LMP government, maybe a reduced minority Labor government return, but they're not going to do anything in the next 12 months while they're trying to, get ready for the next election.
The banks and that being big donators to the Liberal Party and the Labor Party, and they obviously don't want a strong ASIC either. They want to be able to do whatever they can, whenever they can.
No, very true. And have a look at, the contracts being awarded to the big four accounting firms, and there was all a brouhaha and uproar with all that. And, ASIC's hit them with a feather duster and awarded them some new contracts. So, I mean, the cycle needs to be broken. And until stop what's going on, which is purely corruption. It's just dressed up, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, essentially. And until we send some strong messages, but we're only going to be able to do that from independent organisations. But you have a look at, these independent organisations, the government seems to have tentacles into these organisations, and they're merely puppeteers for the government of the day, whether it be Liberal or Labor. I was in Canberra recently watching a Senate estimates session, watching David Shoebridge ask some reasonable questions of some senior public servants in defence. Absolutely disgraceful the way they duck, weave, avoid the questions, and are arrogant, towards an elected member of parliament. Just shows, how entrenched this culture and corruption is from, the government down to, senior leaders, including senior public servants. I mean, recent reports, there's a whole raft of them now on close to $1 million. So we've let it get out of control. It's just gone too far. It needs to be brought back to the centre.
There's people out there who are hoping for reform with ASIC because they've been badly let down in the past, and maybe they're hoping for reform to potentially get justice if they've been ripped off by the banks or financial planners. I think they're going to be waiting a long time. But we'll catch up another time there, Troy.
Yeah, thanks, Shane, for having me tonight.
Not a problem. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Thanks, Shane. Bye.
And thank you for watching my discussion with Troy Stolz, a Pokies whistleblower. If you do an internet search for his name, you'll be able to find out about his whistleblowing in relation to Pokies corruption. And Kangaroo Court of Australia's independent media. I publish a website and a YouTube channel, and I'm 100% crowdfunded from viewers like yourself. So please support my Patreon account. And I currently have 429 supporters donating $2,359 a month. And I need to almost double that to become financially viable. And you can donate any amount, $3, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30, $40, $50 a month, whatever suits your budget. It all helps out in a big way. And the link for the Patreon account will be below this video on YouTube and also on my website. And please share this video on social media. And please hit the like and subscribe button. Other than that, thank you for your time and have a good day.